and this is episode 70.
Yes. Did you
So
have a
it
Merry
looks,
Christmas?
I did thank you, and how about yourself?
Nice and quiet one, which it's not like I don't like it when family is over or if I'm over at family, but sometimes just a quiet, Christmas to myself and my wife, of course, is pretty good. It's one of those things I look forward to, honestly. So,
Yes, I agree. So one previous year, I'll get to what we did this year in a moment, but
mhm.
one previous year, my wife, daughter, and I, it was just the three of us, and we went around looking for something. We didn't feel like cooking anything, so we went around looking to see if anything was open, and it
Mhm.
turned out a kebab shop was open.
Ooh,
So, and the
good.
proprietor of the kebab shop happened to be Muslim, and he wasn't interested in closing for Christmas, and he was doing a roaring trade on that day. And it was actually quite funny because he put flashing lights and music out the front so that people would notice his shop was open. It was great. So anyway, so that was nice, and he's a bit of a famous kebab shop owner too, where in the area which I live.
Okay, yeah.
And yeah, and
Yeah,
this
well, that's
year,
yeah.
yeah, oh, go
Mhm.
on. Yeah.
No. It's good
Uh,
that sometimes those who may not necessarily celebrate Christmas could actually at least cater to those who do celebrate Christmas but need something to eat. So, yeah.
Quite right, exactly. That's right. I find it quite amusing that there he is, doing a roaring trade on Christmas for all the people who didn't want to cook. So,
Mm-hmm.
and this year we visited some friends whose children have now all moved out and everything, and then played some board games.
Oh,
So,
good. Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yes.
So that's always fun
Right. Yeah.
if you like that sort of
Um.
thing, which I do.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Sure. I got an early Christmas present from my wife. I've got the entire Adam West Batman series on Blu-ray, and I've been watching it a lot. I am enjoying it tremendously. It's just the right kind of
Oh,
humor for me, and it's fun to see all the hey, he was in Star Trek. Oh, she was in Star Trek. It's a treasure trove of familiar faces, and it's great to see. It's cheerful, and everybody seemed like they're having fun playing the villains and everybody.
yeah,
I'm loving it tremendously. So.
yeah. So just to so this is the '60s Batman.
Yeah. Adam
Yeah,
West. Yeah.
yeah.
It's yeah.
Yes, there we go. Yep.
Mm,
Yes, I loved that show as a kid,
mm,
actually. Really did. In fact, that was my introduction to Batman. So it was quite only later that I discovered that Batman
mm.
wasn't meant to be a comical character, that he's actually
Right.
meant to be a serious character. So,
Mm,
but I must admit, I've always held on to that comical Batman. Yeah,
mm.
that's my
Yeah,
Batman.
sure. Well, I think it's my favorite version of the Joker. And my favorite version of just about everything is because
Yeah, the
uh,
Riddler, the Penguin. They're also Burgess Meredith,
mm.
I think, was the Penguin. They were
Burgess Meredith. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, they were all, as you say, absolutely fantastic. And I agree. I think a lot of them, I mean, it's been a long time since I saw an episode, but
Hmm.
I think you're right. I think that they were having fun and they were sort of hamming it up deliberately and having a great
Hmm.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't know if we'll ever get shows like that anymore. Like something that lacks. See, it's uh, should I say satirical? It pokes fun at certain things, but it's not cynical.
That's right. And in
Yeah.
actual fact, we're going to talk a little bit about Stargate actually in
Mhm.
this episode. But
Yeah.
one of the things about the original Stargate SG-1, sorry, obviously there was an original movie, but Stargate SG-1 and Stargate Atlantis was they didn't take themselves too seriously. There were a lot of in jokes, and it's obviously that they never forgot that they were just making a TV show and it was meant to be fun. So that's one of the things I've always really liked about it.
Hmm. Exactly. Now you said you were watching the new Stargate, right? We talked about it
Well,
briefly.
I'm watching. Oh no, I'm watching Stargate. I'm rewatching Stargate
Oh,
Universe.
okay, so
Universe. Yeah,
okay, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, right.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So, and speaking of which, that's the third Stargate series. Only lasted for 2 years. I actually quite liked it. This is my only my second time around watching it. I do like it. In fact, I didn't really mean to actually. In fact, I meant to be. I had plans to do some writing for a Voice for Men, a Wiki for Men over the last couple of days, and I've been binge watching Stargate Universe a little bit actually. So I didn't get quite
Yeah.
as much done as I had planned, but I don't mind. It's been a good Christmas break. In any case, yeah, it's more serious than the other two. It doesn't have they're essentially trying to pick up the type of more serious story that the 2004 Battlestar Galactica was doing. But having, especially rewatching it now, I think that the setting they're in quite the characters in Stargate Universe are in quite a desperate situation. They're on a spacecraft that's far from Earth. It's sort of kind of like how Voyager should have been,
Hmm.
Star Trek Voyager should have been,
Sure.
and it is quite a desperate, and they are kind of lurching from one disaster to the other, and sometimes their life expectancy is measured only in days and so forth. So the fact that it isn't as lighthearted as perhaps appropriate for the setting. It occurred to me that in SG-1 and Atlantis, the characters kind of have a mission that's dangerous, and they go home, and they're pretty much safe at home. There the occasional threat to their home world or whatever, but by and large, when they got home at the end of the episode, they were okay. But that's actually not the case in the universe. There's this sort of constant level of heightened anxiety that all the characters
Hmm.
have. So
Yeah.
anyway, yes, I am enjoying rewatching it.
Okay, right. Well, I tend to be a bit wary about when they get really dark, but if it has your word of approval on that,
Hmm.
if it's yeah, then I'll trust it.
Second time around for me, and what I did like it the first time, and I haven't watched it as much as I like. I would often rewatch SG-1 and Atlantis episodes, and I was thinking, I haven't watched Universe for a long time. I will rewatch it. So,
Mhm.
and if you don't mind me digressing slightly, I will
Yeah,
tell a little story about Stargate Universe. I didn't end up,
sure.
despite being quite a Stargate fan. I didn't watch it until several years after it had played, and there was a reason for that. So, Stargate Universe, I was living in Canada at the time, and Stargate Universe was due to release in North America. It was a few days after I was due to take a flight to Australia to visit family. Oh, that's okay. I thought no problem at all. I've got Rogers on demand on cable in Canada. I can just watch it when I get back. And I was in Australia for about 5 or 6 weeks. Went to Australia, visited family, friends, all the rest of it. Came back, got over my jet lag. Sat down a few days later to watch Stargate Universe. I was all big Stargate fan, very excited. First episode's missing. What's going on?
Oh.
So you can see episodes 2 to 6 were there, no episode one. So I did a bit of research.
Mhm.
Turned out, for some reason, the producers of the show had stipulated that the on-demand services could only hold the most recent 5 episodes of the show, and I had missed the by a couple of days with the release. And by the time I got back, even though it wasn't those days after I got back when I was, getting over jet lag and whatnot, the first episode expired a couple of days before I returned to Canada. And I thought, well, okay, I'm not going to watch this until I can watch it properly because I knew the story was
Hmm.
serialized and I wanted to watch it
Exactly.
properly.
Yes.
And as it happened, it was several years before I got to watch it, by which time it had been cancelled, right? Now, okay, mine was a bit of an unusual situation where I was traveling to another country and the dates just happened to work out really badly and I missed out on seeing it. But I wonder how many other people missed out on seeing an episode and knowing that it's serialized simply went, well, I'll just stop watching it until I can watch it in order again.
Yeah.
And I really wonder, with this, what I would consider to be a bizarre rule that you can only store 5 episodes, I really wonder how many, viewers they lost because of this. All it
Oh.
takes is you miss one week and you don't
Hmm.
get back to it for a few weeks, which can happen for a variety of reasons in life, and
Right.
you've missed out. And you might say, well, I'll watch it later then. And suddenly you're dropping off. You're no longer being registered in the cable system because
Hmm.
obviously digital cable can tell that you're watching, right? So they can get
Hmm.
accurate numbers. They would have seen viewership decline. So it's really struck me as a really bizarre rule. All they've done is essentially cut off their own viewership. And then, of course, the show was cancelled after 2 years. So, I mean, it probably wouldn't have made that much of a difference. But I still think surely you would want people to watch the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, so all these years, I remember that. I think the first time I saw it was probably about 2015, which was about 4 or 5 years after, and then now a
Hmm.
decade later. So
Yeah.
bizarre rule to simply say you can only carry 5 episodes because all you're going to do is lose viewers when you do that.
Yeah, yeah,
Bizarre.
exactly. Especially if they're the dedicated source. I'm kind of reminded of
Exactly.
why I'm kind of reminded why I've been kind of really hesitant. Hesitant's not the right word. It's more like careful about getting into Doctor Who because everybody's saying, start with this series, start with that series. I want to start with the very, very first pilot.
Right.
right, and work my way all the way up to the old black and was it black and white? But
Yeah. So I
it was
guess
really old. Yeah, so
so that answers
um,
my question. So I was about to ask
yeah.
whether you meant right back with the first Doctor,
Mm, mhm,
William Hartnell. That's
mhm,
what you mean.
right.
So okay, as a um, growing up in Australia, I was we had a lot of BBC and British media, right, as well as
Mhm,
local media as well, but a lot of British
yeah.
media. And so I grew up with Doctor Who. Um, I've
Mhm,
seen the third, fourth, and fifth Doctors extensively as a kid,
mhm,
uh, but I didn't see much, even having grown up in that period. I did not see much of the first or second Doctor.
okay.
So, if you do go and start right back with the first Doctor, so you will, yeah, you will have actually seen a bunch of stuff that I haven't seen.
Mhm.
Are you aware of the missing episodes?
I'm aware of the missing episodes.
Okay,
Yes.
right,
Yeah,
good.
that's
So,
something I can't help,
no,
obviously.
exactly. I just wanted to make sure that
Mhm,
you weren't going to get too disappointed
mhm,
if you were sitting there thinking you watched the entire thing. For those who don't know, the BBC, in their infinite wisdom, decided that erasing early Doctor Who episodes was a terribly good idea and reusing the tape. And
mm,
this was something that was. I mean, admittedly, the tape was apparently quite valuable, and the storage space was
yeah,
valuable. But nevertheless, this was something that was fairly common at the time, and just in my view, just even recognizing all that, I think it's just awful and bizarre that they did it. Anyway, a lot of other people agreed because quite a lot of BBC staff actually stole episodes in order to prevent them from being erased. And about 10 years
mm,
later, so just to, yeah, I'll give a quick rundown for those who don't know, because particularly a lot of people in North America won't know about this. The About 10 years later, the BBC realised they'd made a terrible mistake, and they had a general amnesty where anybody who had one of these tapes could bring it into the BBC. They would copy it, and the person who originally stole the tape could now take it legally and own it legally. So they got quite a lot of tapes back as a result of that. They also contacted all their partner stations around the world, including in particular the Australian Broadcasting Corporation here in Australia. They had a lot of the episodes as well, so a lot of them were able to be recovered. However, there were quite a few, at least in the few dozen, that were missing. Episodes have continued to turn up from time to time. The last major find, I think, was about 10 years ago. A TV station in some small town in Nigeria was found to have several episodes that nobody else had. And the reason they'd sat there for several decades, they'd been misfiled. And they were actually under some other name in on the labeling. And when they played them, they realised they were Doctor Who episodes that nobody had. So they're back in the BBC archive now, and they're available. So now a couple of other points I want to make. It is widely believed that some episodes exist in private collections that exist nowhere else. Some of those early episodes that weren't returned could be among those, and they may have been sold privately instead of returned to the BBC. There are people who are actively hunting these episodes, including BBC staff, and they have said openly that they think that in the UK there are definitely episodes. In fact, they believe they can actually name people who have got episodes that they're not being released. They've refrained from doing so, but they believe basically said that we can name individuals and say we know this guy's got these episodes.
yeah.
So it's a bit unfortunate that the people who are doing that are holding on to those episodes. Perhaps when they die, maybe those episodes might go up for auction or something, and then maybe they can be purchased and copied and so forth. But there is one more silver lining. In the UK at the time, with video recorders were very expensive in the 1960s, but audio recorders were relatively common. And
Mhm,
it was very, very common, just like in the 80s and 90s, people would videotape their favorite shows. In the 60s, people would audio tape their favorite shows. And
mhm,
so virtually every episode has the original audio available. So what the BBC did was, once they realized that some of the episodes were difficult to find, they asked anybody who had the audio copies to send them in and get them reviewed. And then they picked the best ones and
mhm,
they've used those as the basis for the episodes. And what they've done is they've actually paid cartoonists to redo the episodes as cartoons with the
right.
original audio. Yeah.
Mhm,
So
I
if you're
see.
prepared to watch the cartoon episode, it is the original audio that they have. in the
Yes.
BBC copy.
Mhm.
If you, the problem is at the moment is getting access to these episodes outside the UK.
Ah, okay.
There used to be a streaming service. Well, there still is a streaming service called BritBox, and
Hmm.
it was a collaboration of the BBC and ITV, essentially the two big, as I would call them, the two big producers of British content. It was absolutely fabulous for someone like myself who likes British content to be able to have one streaming service and have all this content. And then the BBC left it, and as a result, all the BBC content has gone. And as a result of that, it's now quite hard outside of the UK to see a lot of this content legally. You could try a VPN. I understand I think for BritBox that's pretty hard. And if you've some of the other streaming services, it's actually they do quite a bit of effort to not just merely geo blocking or whatever. They do actually do some effort to try to figure out whether you're on a VPN or not. So
Yeah, it
anyway,
was.
yeah. So if you're going through that, you should hopefully you can find the content in North America, and yeah you should be able to find all the episodes at least as cartoons with original audio, if not original
Right.
video.
Absolutely, yeah. This is relevant, but the reason I've been kind of, at first I kind of had like a mild interest in getting into it, but I think at the time it seemed like a bit of a chore to kind of get through, so I kind of it dropped off from my radar. But I think in the last year or two, so you know that Magic the Gathering has these Universe Beyond sets, right? That bring in other IPs to make cards out of and so forth. So we actually
Actually, I
so
didn't, but go on. I'm sorry.
okay, yeah, sure. So there's a big problem with that. It's that they're doing too much of it, and a lot of it's too expensive to our chagrin. But that's a bit of a different subject matter altogether.
Hmm.
Um, so they had the Doctor Who set, right? Which is a set of commander decks that's for the commander format of Magic. Uh, uh, that had decks that were focused on a set of doctors, and the one I got had the first eight doctors on it. I kind of picked it up just for curiosity's sake, and each
Nice.
card kind of references everything from the what I believe is the first eight doctors. Um,
Yeah, that sounds right, because that would be the
yeah.
number in the original series. Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And my
right.
curiosity is piqued again. So now I'm very interested in looking at the Doctor Who from the start. I'm actually might go ahead and fall through with that one again at
Yeah,
some point. So
yeah.
yeah.
There are a lot of episodes. If you're
Mm.
going to go right back to the start, you will find there are obviously a lot of
Mm.
episodes. So,
Yeah.
but no,
Yes.
that's great.
Yeah, and I dig through, lost shows, like unreleased shows and so forth. So this is not a new thing for me. I always seem to find the time to dig through old shows and so forth.
Yeah,
So
I do that quite a bit too, actually. And in fact, it's amazing the number of TV shows that were even would have been around either a little bit before me, being born
mhm.
in the early 1970s, or were contemporary for me. And some of them, some of these movies I had never heard of. Oddly enough, I had not seen Soylent Green until about 10 years ago.
Mhm.
Um,
Gotcha. Yeah, I still
so,
haven't seen it. Yeah.
oh, I highly recommend Soylent Green. I won't.
Okay.
I don't know if you know the plot. I won't
I
spoil it for
somewhat
you.
I somewhat know what the plot is. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I mean, it gets referenced quite a bit.
Mhm.
But Soylent Green is great. Yeah. In fact, Charlton Heston did quite a lot of good stuff around that time. Omega Man or Omega Man
Mhm.
is based on the short story, I think, The Last Man, and obviously Will Smith did a later version as well. I Am Legend.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, yeah, actually, maybe that was the name of the original story. But I Am Legend was the Will Smith version. Like a few of those, I mean, I liked I Am Legend, but I actually really like the 1970s version of Mega Man as well. I think it's very, very well done. So yeah, there's a lot of those movies from the 70s, 80s. They're obviously the Planet of the Apes series, which I've watched again recently. The five original Planet of the Apes movies. They're fabulous.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
each of them, and each of them is quite unique too, which I think helps.
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, I have a lot to catch up on because I've been focused on other things than movies, and this and watching movies and and shows and familiarizing myself with them is more of a new phenomenon for me, like more of a recent, more adulthood kind of
Yeah.
thing in my life. I think for the most part, I focused on Star Trek and not much else, and some other things that are particular to me. So my portfolio, if that's the right way to to say it, was not as diversified back then as it is now, and it's still a work in progress. So
So I have done it to a certain extent, but I've actually increased the rate at which I'm doing it in recent years, and the reason for that is that a lot of modern cinema, well, some of it's woke, but some of it is just
uh,
it's just terrible.
oh yeah,
Like
yeah,
Star Trek, as I've mentioned before, people tell me Star Trek Discovery is woke. I don't know. I didn't get that far. I just said it was just terrible.
right, yeah.
So, um,
Mhm,
so for this is for a lot of this is, as a result of this, it's turned me back to earlier movies and earlier TV shows
mhm,
quite a bit.
right, right, exactly. Well, I think we talked about enough TV shows and movies right now. I think we should get to some Go Post material. Yeah,
Yeah, yes. So,
yeah. As much as I'd like to, I like talking about TV shows, but we're gonna fill up a lot of time.
yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly right. But of course, just to remind people, in episode 70, maybe it's time to remind people the goalpost isn't just red pill content, it's content from a red pill perspective. So the
yes,
content could be
right.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was doing some research and I came across one just very quickly. It related, it was just a study, but I think it was a fairly sizable study. Anyway, we can always, and in fact, we can always link this below the video. But what I found quite interesting about it and a bit concerning was that the proportion of well, first of all, the proportion of men. This video study relates to views of sexual assault, and they were asking questions about male victims of sexual assault, and in the when they it was actually they did a comparative study on in between. So there was an original study in 1984, and then they replicated the study in 2019, and they compared the results. In 1984, a fairly substantial proportion of men would have said that men enjoyed the sexual assault, essentially. But the proportion of men in 2019 was much lower. But what's concerning is the reverse has happened with women. In 1984, very few women would have said the men would have enjoyed it, but it was about 5%. But in 2019, it was 25%. So that's
Mhm.
very concerning. I mean, it's great to see that the men are no longer seeing that over that time, but the actual proportion of women who are seeing it is growing. So I'm actually going to have something on A Voice for Men about this and something on Wiki for Men. But I just thought I'd just very quickly mention that. So we can always put the link into a link into
The low
the
bar, yeah.
comparative study, the replication study. Yeah, exactly, under the
Yeah.
video. So
Right.
um, the next item I wanted to talk about, I just really wanted to briefly talk about that. I will be, as I
Yeah.
said, be expanding on that more in the pages of A Voice for Men. Um, is there was a, I just wanted to briefly talk about the NHS.
Uh-huh.
So the NHS is the National Health Service in the UK, which is the socialised medical system in the UK, which is very similar to Medicare in Australia. Germany and many other countries have something similar. But a male NHS medic has won a £34,000 sex discrimination case because he complained that he was being assigned to deal with violent patients because he was male. So he was essentially so he's in all likelihood there are probably more women in the role, and but amongst the people in his role, he was making the point that he would be given the violent and difficult patients compared to his female peers, and he took them to the relevant anti-discrimination body in the UK, and he won. So he's been awarded
Oh.
£34,000 for being essentially they were essentially proving that the NHS was discriminating against him and giving him extra work purely because
Uh,
he's a man,
of
or more
course, yeah.
extra and more difficult work it was.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, we have a lot of losses with that sort of thing. There are a lot of cases where where discrimination against men is given an exemption and so forth. But every once in a while, one of these is upheld, and I suspect it may be becoming more common actually for them to
Right.
uphold
Yeah.
them. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that's a great win by this gentleman. They were if he's doing more work and more difficult work, then they need to pay him more. Maybe they need to
Yeah.
give him a higher grade. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Because we were thinking about these like things like the NHS. You kind of, well, for someone like me, I always think like some kind of enforced egalitarianism, and like some ideas about some weird ideas about equal pay and so forth. But the reality is they still rely on the subtle uh, uh, discriminations because we don't dare question the convention of this. And
Yeah.
so, but yeah, I mean, pay the guy more for the dangerous
Mm.
job, if
Yep.
that's what you want to kind of conclude. But don't be a complete hypocrite about it.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And if there are women who believe that they're, capable of having, maybe there should be some special category or something for people, for nurses who are going to deal with the more
Mhm.
difficult patients. And if the women are, comfortable to, apply for those roles and have the skills and the training and whatnot, let's let them go
Just
for it.
yeah.
Yep.
Right.
So I want to talk next about a Norwegian tourist. Now I'm going to engage in some supposition here. It's a bit unusual for me. I usually stick very closely to the facts when I'm describing
Mhm.
situations, but I'm going to be very
Sure.
clear here in my supposition. But
Yeah.
I'm going to engage in some supposition now. So here we go.
Hmm.
So, a Norwegian tourist in Australia, this happened only a few days ago, was near a beach in a suburb called St Kilda in the city of Melbourne in
Hmm.
Australia. And he was on a pier, apparently, as in the pier was, extending out into the ocean. And he was taking photographs because, I mean, he's a tourist, and tourists do that sort of thing.
Hmm.
Well, apparently, some people got the idea that he was taking pictures of people on the beach and on the pier. And now all the media reports have said people. I'm going to go out on a limb and say when they say people, they mean women. Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah, we've got this guy who some people in the immediate area have formed the opinion that he is taking pictures of women, even though their media hasn't said that. I think that's what they,
Okay.
they believed. They have then so essentially the core group was three men and a woman. Now, again, bit of supposition here, but I'm going to suggest that it's possible that the woman made an accusation
Hmm.
and that the men then proceeded to rough him up. That would make it proxy violence, if true.
Yes.
Again, the media reports haven't said that, but reading between the lines, it sure looks to me like that might be what happened.
Hmm.
So, and that would be consistent with a lot of other cases. So, the woman is the one who makes the complaint. He's taking pictures of me without my consent, etc. Her male friends who will then proceed to rough the guy up. And there's some video of this occurring. Now, the core group was three men and one woman, as I said, but there were in the end, several dozen people appear to have been roughing this guy up. So it was really, to this guy, it must have been absolutely terrifying. He got out of it with facial injuries and a broken arm. He fortunately it wasn't worse. He apparently realized what was happening and tried to show them his phone to prove he wasn't taking pictures of
Hmm.
of people.
Right. Okay.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and they proceeded to grab his phone and throw it in the ocean.
Okay.
So he's now down a phone, got a broken arm, and face injuries, facial injuries. Anyway, he has apparently they're not quite sure because the police actually had a bit of trouble contacting him, but they think
Mhm.
he's probably returned to Norway. So, but
Mhm.
police have charged one man already, and they do
Mhm.
have pictures of the three men and the woman. So I'm hoping that the
Yeah.
investigation continues and they're able to interview at least those four, and
Yeah.
maybe others are involved as well. But
Right. Yeah.
anyway, yeah. So
Um.
it's looking a lot like proxy violence to me.
Yeah. And if I make some of my own suppositions, I am very sure he did not take pictures because if he did, those people would probably have kept the phone to prove
Yep.
that he did. But
Yep.
it
And
was not in their they didn't care about that. They just tossed it because they just wanted to engage
yep.
in a bit of physical unjust physical release there.
Exactly. And in fact, there's been at least one media report which has explicitly said he didn't do it.
Right.
So,
Hmm.
which
Yep.
means the police are confident that he didn't do it.
Hmm.
To the extent that that's illegal anyway. Normally, you can
Hmm.
take pictures in public places, even
Right.
and have other people in the pictures. Anyway, so yeah, this poor Norwegian tourist has been injured, and I'm sure, aside from everything else, I'm sure that's going to do great things for Australian tourism as well in Norway. And
Right.
yeah,
Yep.
so but I do hope that he makes contact with this with Victoria Police, the state
Hmm.
police, and that they are charging them anyway. But I do hope he makes contact with the police and follows through, and maybe gives evidence and
Yeah.
gives a victim impact statement, and so forth
Right.
when they if and when they're prosecuted.
Hmm.
So that's a bit of an unfortunate incident.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah. Let
We've
me
had,
a
yeah,
bit of
go on.
a yeah kind of an inspired remark on this one is that tradcons are always kind of going on about protect your woman and be prepared to face up to anyone who be doing anything to inconvenience them. But at the end of the day, that just turns you into a thug. You know,
Mm,
so
mm.
don't do the thug simp route. Uh,
And
it's
and
bad for
quite a lot of
others.
the
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I was quite a lot of the time the proxy violence is based on false accusations as well.
Hmm.
On Wiki for Men, we have a number of documented cases where the men provably didn't do it. It's not a matter of
Right.
opinion;
Hmm.
they
Yes.
provably didn't do it,
Yes.
and were quite seriously injured as a result of proxy
Hmm.
violence. So, and of
Hmm.
course, who gets charged? But the man who injured the other man, right?
Hmm.
And the woman who made the false accusation gets away scot free. So,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, don't do it if you believe somebody has done something wrong, make a complaint to the police, let them investigate it. So,
Yeah. Or in any other way, try and resolve it more peacefully,
yes,
at least.
depending on the
Yes.
severity. That's right.
Yeah.
Depending on
Right.
the severity, exactly.
Hmm.
That's right. Yes,
Right. Are you for the truth or are you for impressing your women? You know?
quite right.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
yeah.
mm,
And it is that tradcon view of I've got to defend my woman and so forth.
yeah.
Exactly. That's right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the next, I guess, the next thing, and we talked about this just beforehand, as to
Yep.
one of the things we were going to discuss.
Okay.
Another incident's happened in
Hmm.
Australia.
Hmm.
Go on.
Yeah. No, no,
Everyone.
no. It's something that I got inspired by. I'll save it for a bit later.
Okay, no problem at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so everyone's heard about it, the Bondi shooting. So absolutely awful. This sort of thing is very, very unusual in Australia. Interestingly, the last one that happened wasn't a shooting, it was a knife attack. It also happened to happen in Bondi. It's also
Hmm.
kind of a bit ironic that there aren't very many suburbs in Australia that most people will have heard of. Bondi is one of them because Bondi Beach is
Hmm.
famous.
I see.
So it is, yeah, it is, I guess, a little ironic that it happened, unless it was deliberate. It's possible actually now I'm going to call them terrorists, and I want to clarify, and I think I've said this in a previous episode. It's not a word I use lightly because
Hmm.
the word terrorist has expanded during my lifetime in the
Yeah.
scope. So there are plenty of cases of people being called terrorists when I would call them guerrillas,
Hmm.
essentially not irregular combatants fighting a regular army. They'll be
Right.
called terrorists. No, I don't think they're terrorists. I think if they're fighting a regular army and they're in plain clothes, whatever, they're guerrillas. So
Hmm.
but so the term terrorist has expanded in my lifetime, and I remember commenting on this in my late teen years and early 20s, expressing concern about it then that the definition I was already obviously expanding and the anti-terrorism powers are expanding, and that's a very dangerous combination because there are now great powers of detention for terrorists. Well, if the definition of terrorism expanding, then that could really lead to some very dark places. But having said all that, yeah, these people fulfill my definition of terrorist. Absolutely, it's a case where I will use the word terrorist. So these two terrorists obtained rifles. There's no semi-automatic weapons are very hard to obtain in Australia, and as far as I know, these were not semi-automatic weapons. But they were rifles that were able to fire quite quickly and quite accurately at distance. And in the end, I think 15 people were murdered. Um, Interestingly enough, a lot of this people will have seen on the media and so forth. But interestingly enough, one of the heroes on the day was none other than a Syrian and Syria, and he was actually born in Syria and lived in Australia for I think the last 15 or 20 years, and
Okay,
ran a
yeah.
tobacco shop, and he
Yeah.
very heroically snuck up on one of the attackers, as I think people will have seen. But poor guy got then proceeded to get shot twice in the arm, and there was some question about whether he was going to be able to keep his arm or not. Actually, I think
Oh, but he
now they
survived.
think yeah, yes, he
Oh, good,
survived,
good,
and
good.
oh yes, there was a question about they might have to amputate the arm, but I think they're now
Yeah.
saying that he'll be keeping the arm. But the poor guy's in
Yeah.
a lot of pain and
Mm,
so forth, and had a number of operations already. I think. In any case, he's received quite a substantial amount in donations, about 2.5 million Australian dollars, or at 1.5 million
mm,
US dollars.
yeah.
And given that I think he's not going to be well, not going to be working for a while. I think it's probably great
Mm,
that he's got some money there. But
yeah.
anyway, yeah. So yeah, absolutely awful. Very rare incidents in Australia. For an incident like this to happen in Australia. Um, there's been a lot of criticism of the Australian government, and the Australian Prime Minister has been booed over this. Some people have argued that Australia's recognition of Palestine encouraged this event. I don't necessarily think that it encouraged the event. However, I do think that our current Prime Minister is perhaps equivocating a little much and maybe not being as good a leader as perhaps
Hmm.
he could be.
Yeah.
Um, so
Mm.
anyway, yeah. So I'm not.
Do you think
Yeah, go on.
he's feeling outshined in stupidity by Keir Starmer?
Possibly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Um, but that's Anthony Albanese, the Prime Minister of Australia, by the way, for
Mm,
those who don't
mm,
know.
mm,
Yeah, so it's interesting now. They are trying to. There have been a couple of other attacks against Jewish sites and so forth
mm,
since as well. Nothing so serious, but they are trying to diffuse the tension a bit. It's very unfortunate that we're seeing throughout the West increasing willingness to resort to violence, and it doesn't lead to good places. And this is something that I've often said to the wokies when they're being violent, but I'll say it equally to both sides. Be very careful what you normalize, because are you so sure that the other side isn't better at it than you are? So if you start normalizing violence, then you might just find your opponents are actually a lot better at it than you are. So
yeah.
if you introduce this into the equation, then it can come back at you.
Right. Yeah.
So
And
I
the other
stand for
side,
non-violent resolution of problems. Mm,
right, yeah, sure. But the other side's getting restless too, so,
mm.
right.
And this is a related problem too, where if you don't, and this is something I've made a reference to in regards to other problems we've been seeing in the world. If there are moderate voices and the moderate voices get ignored, then maybe the next group of people that come along are more extreme, unfortunately. So
Hmm.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
we're seeing a lot of problems in the West now, and I'm not. Like I see problems on both sides of politics, for example,
Yeah.
um, and I'm really not point. A lot of people love to point the finger at one or the other. They'll demonize one or the other. I can
Mm,
see problems on both sides of politics, and it's something. And intolerance, and we've mentioned this before. An intolerance for alternative viewpoints is a growing problem in the West, and so that's why I always encourage people to talk to the moderates on the other side
I can understand that, right.
in a hope to diffuse the problems.
Mhm. Right. Well, it shows resilience, to at least entertain, it's, to entertain differing views, not in some kind of
Mm,
woke diversity thing, which is in itself a very fragile kind of singularity in
mm,
itself. But the idea that you don't have to shoot anyone just for having an opinion one way or the other is
Yep.
a sign that they're able to deal with something much more peacefully.
Yeah.
But that needs to be kind of not a one-way street as well. It kind of needs to proliferate a little bit more among the differing viewpoints for it
Mm.
to really work out, if that makes sense. So
Yep. And I just wanted to reiterate too a couple of points. Firstly, we've said this before. Uh, Woke and left don't mean the same thing. There are anti-woke people on the left.
mhm.
Okay,
Oh yeah.
while woke itself tends to be focused on the, or is focused on the left, there are anti-woke people on the left, and I personally know people all the way from conservatives to socialists in some cases. And I've always made a point of maintaining contact with a wide variety of people. There's some great people who have been prominent anti-feminists, for example, who would generally be described as being on the left. Versus I've noticed a tendency towards sometimes people on the right can demonize all the people on the left, as I was saying, and classify them all as woke. Never forget there are people on the left who are not woke.
Mhm.
And it's worth talking to those people. You might find there are things you agree on,
Mhm.
even if there are things you disagree on.
Mhm. For sure.
And having said that, even though I'm openly anti-feminist and have been for a long time, I actually have some moderate feminists as Facebook friends, for example, and we talk. There's people like Camille Paglia and Christina Hoff Sommers who both call themselves feminists, but have done some great work raising issues for referencing men's and boys' issues. Yes, in some cases they can still be a little bit gynocentric, or a little bit perhaps, but they're
More or
still, but
less. Yeah.
nevertheless,
Yeah.
but nevertheless, they can still produce some good data, and there's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with referencing their data, even if I disagree with them on other points. So.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize that it doesn't hurt to talk to people of differing viewpoints, and uh, and yeah, just keep the lines of communication open, I think, and we
Mhm.
might
For sure.
be able to hopefully. Because if we don't, I'm really concerned this sort of problem is going to get worse.
Mhm. Makes
Hopefully, we can
sense.
diffuse it.
Right. Yeah. But without, compromising one's viewpoint just to tolerate the other person, right?
Never.
'Cause-
Nope. Just be. And there's nothing wrong. You can talk to a person, and that doesn't mean you have to agree with everything they say, or agree, agree on everything.
yeah.
So I've talked to people and um, there's a lot of people who I would call, like for example, I would call woke, who are often insincere, unfortunately. But
hmm
but if you can find someone who's sincere, then yeah, it's possible to have a serious conversation, and you can actually get right down to the point. Okay, we agree on these points, and we
Yeah.
disagree on these points.
That's right.
Um, yep.
What I'm thinking of is that, I don't always know that, I know that X is now the free speech platform, at least ostensibly, right?
Yeah.
But I'm actually wondering if that kind of platform is not the best place for these discussions to take place because those, due to the public nature of those kind of sites, it's more about performance and putting on a
Hmm.
show,
Mm.
and kind of evisceration than discussion, assuming a discussion is potentially had. So it's part of the reason why I'm not as active on X and other social media like that anymore. It's partly out of boredom, but other times I don't feel like just kind of putting on a show so much. It's like just to have like a argument with some anywhere from low hanging fruit to someone who might be a bit of a challenge. But it's just one of the reasons that I don't think meaningful conversation is much to be had here. It seems like we're just seeing a show, or multiple shows on people who not on sides who don't want to change their minds.
Yeah.
We know what
Yes.
sides we're, yeah, but yeah,
Yeah,
go
a
ahead.
serious conversation may well be a private conversation too, because people,
Yeah,
although there's still a possibility somebody could screen capture it. But I will also
yeah,
say that there's been a tendency, I've been online for rather a long time, and
mhm,
I've watched the internet evolve, and it's evolved. There's been a lot more centralization in the last 15 years or so
mhm,
than we had previously. And prior to the big social media sites, there were forums. and before that there were mailing lists, and before that Usenet even. Usenet goes right back to 1978 or something. And Usenet, by the way,
Mm.
if you use a broad definition for social media, then Usenet qualifies as social media, and it dates from the 1970s. So, but the modern Usenet, the modern social media sites
Mm.
tend to be, even ones like X, they tend to have more censorship than you might find on a forum. So I quite liked the older forum approach where
Mm.
it was a smaller site. There might be a few hundred or a few thousand people on there, and it was focused on one particular topic rather than having a Facebook group or whatever. And you had a
Exactly.
forum. Yep. And as I
Yeah.
said, same thing for mailing lists. There was a lot more freedom in that sort of environment than there is on
Mm.
the large social media sites. But the
Yeah.
important bit to remember is all the tools to build a forum and all the tools to build a mailing list are all still out there. It all still
Hmm.
exists, right?
Right. Hmm.
Everything you need. In fact, I think we have talked about some of this before, but the Internet Engineering Task Force, which is the people who essentially oversee the architecture of the internet and guide it, right? They use mailing lists. They still use mailing lists. They don't use forums. They certainly don't use Facebook. They just use mailing lists, right?
Hmm.
So it's reliable, it's easy, and it's a lot less decentralized. If I'm on a mailing list, which I still am on quite a number, I receive a copy of the email that is in my mailbox, and nobody can take that away from me, ever. So,
Yes.
but then having said that, many people have webmail these days, which again allows a lot of control for large companies. But it is possible to copy the mail out of your mailbox in sites like Gmail and so forth. So
Yeah.
that's something to consider too. You can copy it out and store it locally.
Yes. Makes sense.
Um, anyway, so that was yeah. I guess we went off a little bit off track there, but
Mm.
yeah, the centralization of the internet is a problem, and it is a problem for people with unpopular views like us, where censorship has been a problem. I don't know how you feel about it though. I think censorship isn't the problem that it was 5 or 10 years ago for us. That we've made significant headway in essentially capturing an audience. Some people have argued that anti-feminism has essentially captured YouTube now. I don't know if I go that far,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
I do think that
Oh, you mean
the
it's you mean censorship is less of a prevailing problem right now, or
yes, exactly,
okay,
that's
yeah,
right, by the big media sites
right,
than it was, I think, and well, it's some of them anyway. Like Facebook's still probably fairly bad, but in terms of say YouTube or X, it's not the problem that it once was. But that doesn't take away from the fact that there's still a lot of value in having in using these smaller sites.
right. Well, I tend to agree with you that we seem to have our message more proliferated, and from that we can indicate that censorship is having less of a grip. Uh,
Yeah.
one concern I have is that we can't be complacent about it. It could flare up again, depending on how the
Yeah.
waves of ideology transpire across the
Yes.
years. So,
I think we're in a good place, but nevertheless, I absolutely concede your point. We can never drop our guard. Yes.
yeah, right.
Um, so I do. I actually, my take. I don't know if I've said this in previous episodes at all, but my take is that we are in a very good place in terms of having successfully conveyed the message that
Hmm.
we want to talk about. Terms like gynocentrism have now gone completely mainstream.
Hmm.
Terms that 10 or 15 years ago you would only have seen in the pages of A Voice for Men
Hmm.
are
Right.
now being routinely discussed. Gynocentrism, of course, being of course, for those who don't know, of course, Peter Wright, long-time A Voice for Men contributor, has his site, gynocentrism.com, of course, hosted on the A Voice for Men infrastructure. So, but if you haven't looked at that site, absolutely you should.
Mm. Right. Well,
But
now feminist academics are trying to challenge gynocentrism by name now, right?
they are. That's right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You recently showed me a really particularly moronic paper
Yes.
from a feminist.
So I'll quickly cover that. So I think so. Peter Wright found a paper, and I went and then found, which reference Wiki for Men, one of our other sites, And I then found another one. I went and had, because I do periodically look myself, but right after you did that, I was prompted to look, and I found another one. And the one I found, I thought was particularly moronic. It made a number of just completely wild and incorrect claims, including that most of the Wiki for Men articles were not readable. This is not true. All the articles are readable, unless the article's been deleted, which I think the total number of articles that have ever been deleted on Wiki for Men is about two or three or something. But aside from those, all the articles can be read by everybody. I think what they were getting at is there were a number of draft articles, and the draft articles don't come up in the random searches by design. I think that's what the author she was getting at. But she said they weren't
Yes.
readable, which is not true. You can just type the name in or whatever, or search for it or
Was
whatever,
it
you'll find it.
was
So
it what was this author expecting an unpublished draft to be readable?
apparently, exactly. Well,
Okay.
I deliberately
All right.
designed it so that the unfinished articles do not appear in the random article selection.
That seems like standard operating procedure for most sites, right? I mean,
Exactly, that's right.
yeah.
So they're supposed to, so she claimed it unreadable. But the one that I thought was particularly egregious, and this was written about this article, it's a paper. It's an academic paper, and it was published in a journal called Men and Masculinities, which we have. I have got
Mhm.
records of in we've mentioned in Wiki for Men and so forth before, but the the paper claims that the Wiki for Men may fabricated data. It actually says that. It actually says that Wiki for Men fabricated data. Now, to be clear, I'm the author of the article in question.
Okay.
Okay, I can assure you I did not fabricate the data. Moreover, the citation which shows the data is linked on the page. So, okay, so it's actually an article on stoning. It's been claimed that only women have been stoned in Iran, and and this is a widespread feminist claim, and I had long been suspicious of this claim. I finally got to a chance and I went and researched it. Almost immediately, I found a list of names of people found by an independent organisation. They found a list of names of people who had been stoned in Iran,
Mhm.
right? Stoned to death, right?
Yeah.
And they're listed by gender. There were a few, I think, where they didn't know the gender, but most of the people they knew whether they were men or women. And so I just transcribed that information onto Wiki for Men and cited it, and the article's linked right there. And of course, this goes against this feminist notion that only women get stoned in Iran. And so she claimed that Wiki for Men had fabricated the data, and Wiki for Men, i.e., me, because I wrote that article,
Yeah.
absolutely did not fabricate the data. So
Correct.
there we are. So I think I will write to the journal about that one actually, because making an egregious claim like that the data is
Mhm.
fabricated when the source of the data that would show it to you is linked immediately on the page, and I verified when I read this, I went back to the wiki and verified it
Mhm.
was still there, and it is. Like that
Yeah.
hadn't been moved or whatever. Like some occasionally links are moved, but that's not the case. I think I also have a copy of the information as well,
Mhm.
and I also do often archive copies in case that happens.
Yeah.
But
Right.
but in this particular case, the information was right where it should have been. So
Yeah.
anyway, so I think I will have to go back and I think I'll have to contact the journal about that one and really call them
Okay.
out on that.
Well, it'd be pretty hysterical if you made it an open letter.
Oh yes, sorry to
Yeah.
clarify. Absolutely, I'm making it an
Yeah.
open letter. Absolutely,
Good.
absolutely, yes,
Good.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I only ever do open letters to these people. Yeah,
Mm. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
and I shall read. Go on.
that was a particularly hilariously
Yes,
thought-free, backing-free, fact-free article. It's
exactly,
like
exactly.
take any woke show right now, like some kind of feministy woman kind of yakking about certain buzzwords like sexism and misogyny and so forth. Imagine a whole slew of that nonstop in novella form. That's what it
That's right. That's right.
resembled.
I
Like
found
they,
two
none
or
of the
three
points were
factual
backed up.
errors at the article, in the
Right,
paper.
sure.
Anyway, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I don't know. None of the points were had any backing to it. It was just
No.
statements Right,
That's right.
right. Yeah. It's
And
so
that's
yeah.
apparently what passes for an academic paper these
Hmm.
days.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
right.
that's
Yeah.
right.
It
Yep,
is the standard right now. So.
that's right. And in fact, related to this, now I'm a bit afraid I may not remember the exact term for it, but there's now a concept in the social sciences and anthropology and so forth where the researcher will write about their personal experiences in relation to culture
Mhm.
and publish it. And people are actually defending this as a legitimate form of research in the social sciences. The exact name escapes me right now, but yeah, it's actually being claimed to be a legitimate form. So they're doing not only they're doing it, they're defending it,
Mhm.
and that people are essentially writing about their personal experiences and relating it to culture, and that's apparently what makes an academic paper. One skeptical academic that I read talking about this referred to it as people using their memoirs as scientific
Yeah.
papers because it's their own personal experiences, right?
Mhm. Exactly.
So anyway, it's what a ridiculous world we live in. Clown world, absolute clown world.
Yes.
Yeah. I said I was going to talk about history, but a bunch of other stuff got. Sorry, I said I was going to talk about education, but a
Hmm.
bunch of other stuff's got in the way that I wanted to talk about instead. So I think I'll defer that. But I do
Okay.
want to talk about education later.
Mhm.
But I've got the great man of history. If we're ready to talk about that, and you've got you had a couple of other items, and you also
I got
mentioned
a
one
couple
you
of
thought
other
of.
items, and I would probably not want to defer them. So yeah.
Okay, do you want to talk
Yeah.
about them now before I talk about the great man
No,
of history?
no. Let's go ahead with our guy.
Okay, all right. So, the today's great man of history is Johannes Gutenberg.
Hmm.
So, he is credited with inventing the moving type printing press. Now, let's
Yes.
clarify this.
Hmm.
Printing presses did exist before Gutenberg, right? But he invented the moving type printing press. And in fact, there's a lot of cases where there's some question about who invented what, which specific individual it was. Often inventions are quite incremental, so we may say such a person invented something, but there was something very, very similar immediately beforehand, and so forth. A classic example of this is who invented the computer. Charles Babbage is often cited as a 19th century figure who invented the computer, and
Hmm.
yet you can actually find earlier examples of very computer-like devices like the spinning jenny and so forth that precede him. So there's an argument to be made that it was quite incremental, not to take away from Charles Babbage at all, because
Of course.
I think he's got a very strong claim for it, but nevertheless, it's often incremental. In the case of Johannes Gutenberg, I think he's got a very strong, particularly strong claim to having invented the movable type printing press. As I
Hmm.
said, printing presses existed before, but and also what he essentially did was his device allowed for because he could set the type and print quickly. That caused an absolute explosion in in the distribution of information, and it's been called an information revolution. And in many ways, it actually is very similar to the explosion of the internet on the scene in the last 30 to 35 years for us. So I'd say 30 years. 1995 is the date at which I pegged the internet really started to get noticed, and by 2000 it was going in full steam. So and yeah, the invention of the printing press was every bit as revolutionary in his time as in the movie type printing press as the internet is in our time. But a little bit about Gutenberg. So one of the great things about this is I get to research the history of these guys because often I don't, you don't necessarily know much about their childhood. Well, turns out nobody knows much about Gutenberg's childhood. So we think he was born around 1400, but that's plus or minus 6 or 7 years. So nobody really knows
Okay.
when he was born
Yeah.
to any great degree. But we do know it was in the city of Mainz, which is now in Germany. And yeah, so we don't know very much about his childhood, except we do know that his family was fairly wealthy to actually well off.
Hmm.
It seems like he grew up in a bit of a mansion, so they were probably maybe even better than well off. They might have been, rich, not stinking rich, but they were
Yeah.
going pretty well.
Hmm.
He probably went to university. It isn't clear he graduated, but he probably studied a bit of university, which of course was actually an unusual thing at the time, and also tends to speak towards his family probably being fairly well off. Um, Now, we don't even know exactly when he invented the movable type printing press,
Mhm.
but it could have been as early as 1440. But what we do know is by 1450, it was being actively used. So he did the famous Gutenberg Bible
Yes,
in
yeah. I re
1454 to 1455.
Yeah, if I can interject, I'm
Yep,
not religious, let alone Christian, but I would love to get a good look at a Gutenberg Bible.
be nice to look.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, sure. Like,
I agree.
yeah, I would even love to touch it, but that doesn't sound too realistic. There are only like 40, something like 49 of them that are still exist in
Yep,
existence today.
yep.
Yeah,
I
they
agree. It
look
would be
really
nice to
good.
see one, wouldn't
Yeah,
it? Yeah,
yeah, they
absolutely.
look really good.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So, interestingly enough, in 1456, he was sued for what amounts to embezzlement of investment money. He
Okay.
redirected investment money. Now, bear in mind, it was a different time, and people were a lot more flexible with the use of money in those days than they are now.
Mhm.
A good example of this is major public projects, where if somebody was heading up a major public project in, say, the UK or England, they would be given the money as private funds, and then it was a matter of them managing it. If they managed it badly, it would cost them money, but if they managed it well, they would make money out of it. So it was a very different way of doing things. But having so, you know, sources didn't use the word embezzlement. It came to my mind, but now thinking about it again, I think maybe that's a bit harsh because it was a different time, and and there was a lot more flexibility. Now we're quite strict with how money is to be used, personal funds, funds from that your employer has given you to make a purchase, whatever. There's this great distinction we make. It wasn't necessarily the case then, but nevertheless, he got sued for misuse of these funds, and he lost. And this appears to have effectively bankrupted him. However, he did recover, and he was later appears to be quite well off financially again, and was also recognised for his achievements by various German states. Um, Now, I do want to make a couple of other points about this. First of all, have you ever heard of? Speaking of, we talked about the Gutenberg Bible. Have
Mhm.
you ever heard of the Wicked Bible?
No, I have not.
So this was given. This wasn't to be clear. Gutenberg did not print the Wicked Bible. The Wicked Bible was printed in England. I meant to look up
Okay.
the year. Actually, I forgot to look up the year, but it sounds like an urban legend, but it's actually true.
All right.
The In England, a Bible. Now this was very common. Bibles were very popular and sold well. Well, these printers decided to print a run of Bibles. I think it was a couple of thousand Bibles, sometime in the 17th century or something. I think it was. Anyway, the Bible was missing a word, and it caused a bit of a problem. See, the word that was missing was not, and this is true. The Bible said, "Thou shalt commit adultery."
Oh God.
Sounds like an urban legend.
Mhm.
It's not. It actually
Mhm.
happened. The
Right.
king was absolutely livid, ordered the entire lot to be reclaimed and
Mhm.
pulped, right?
Mhm.
And he fined the printers
Mhm.
on top of this, right?
Right.
However, several people, possibly seeing the joke of wanting the future, seeing how useful this is great will be for posterity, managed
Yeah.
to hold on to copies. And there's a handful of copies still in the world
Yeah.
today. I believe there's one somewhere in, I think it's Germany or something, where it's, or maybe England, where it's open to the page. You can actually read where it says it. In a museum somewhere. Anyway, I probably should have checked a little bit deeper to remember which museum it was, but the Wicked Bible is a real thing. It sounds like an urban legend. When I first heard it in the 90s, I thought it must have been an urban legend. It's not. It's
Mhm.
really happened. Anyway, uh, just an aside, nothing to do with Gutenberg directly, but I just thought that was amusing. So you got to the value of proofreading, right?
Mhm. Right.
The other fun one that I want to
Mhm.
mention about about printing is that the
Mhm.
when the printing press got going, it was on mainland Europe.
Mhm.
Old Gutenberg's a German, and people in England, of course, wanted copies of the printing presses. But the English at the time were actually using a slightly different alphabet to the people in mainland Europe,
All
and
right.
they were in fact using a slightly different alphabet than we use today.
Mhm.
And so they got these printing presses, and apparently, including a kit for English buyers with the extra letters, apparently didn't occur to anybody. I don't know. I was just thinking about this today. I
Oh,
was thinking,
okay.
why didn't you just cut out make the extra letters when you were selling to an English buyer and charge them an extra £50 for the
Yeah.
extra letters they need? But that's not what happened. English printers got the ones that were made for Germany and France, and thus some letters were missing. In particular, the letter thorn was missing, and this was used to make a th sound, to write the th sound in English at the time. We've since got rid of it because it looks way too much like a p. If you, it's one of several letters that the English language has dropped. That's anyway. Printers started using a y as an analog for the th sound in the, for example, uh, in order to because the printing presses weren't coming with a thorn.
Hmm.
And that's where the ye old shop comes from. It was never pronounced ye old shop. Everybody at the time would recognize the Y as an analog for the thorn because the printing press didn't have one. It's read
Oh,
the old shop. Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
So anytime anyone uses ye,
Yeah,
that's what it's
in that
referencing?
context, yeah, in that
Was
context, it's
that
wrong.
okay?
There was a like there were English words like yay, for example, but in
Hmm.
terms of like ye old shop, that would have been read by someone in the 17th century. They would have read that as the, because they would have
Hmm.
recognised that the printer used the y as an analog for the thorn sound because they hadn't yet got
Okay.
used to the idea, hadn't yet dropped in th.
Hmm. All right.
So yeah, and it was all because the printing presses didn't have the right characters.
Okay. I don't know how personal this is, but I'm gonna say it anyway. So whenever my dad and I have correspondence, like we write letters or whatever, like Christmas cards or whatever, and otherwise messages. He would conclude it instead of sincerely his name. Or something like that, he would say "ye old dad," you know. So
Yeah, right. Yeah,
so it puts a funny
nice.
spin on that. So
Yeah, yeah, nice.
I'll probably let him know about that.
There's some great
Uh,
videos on this actually. I'm a bit of a minor English in
yeah.
linguistics, and so
Mm,
there's some
yeah.
great videos on the lost letters in English.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So anyway, there's a number of them that we've lost. Yeah.
Right, yeah,
So anyway,
yeah. I'm
yeah.
thinking back on the knot that was left out. I'm kind of
Yes.
looking through the list of the commandments now as a reminder. I'm just like, what if it wasn't adultery? What if it was something else? I don't
Thou shalt steal. Could have been
know.
yeah, but of
Hmm.
all the words to miss, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right.
No. Um, So yeah, that's I had a couple of side tracks there off
Mm,
Gutenberg, but there's some fun
right.
stories about the oh there's one more
Mm.
I nearly forgot.
Is it okay?
Project, and in fact it's looking at me right now in my notes, and I read it and still couldn't remember what I was right. Project Gutenberg. This is the final one I wanted to mention. Have you heard of Project Gutenberg?
Yes, I've heard of Project Gutenberg,
Great,
but I need to be
great.
filled in here. So,
That's right. It's a quite an old internet project. I've been online since 1992, and I think Project Gutenberg was either going then or had or was not. It was not going to be much longer before it started. Project Gutenberg's aim, and I think maybe they might be there by now with the basic aim, was to digitize all public domain written texts, at least in
okay. Yeah.
English, and they would essentially scan them all. And I believe the Gutenberg Bible was one of the first ones that they did, hence the name. But essentially, if it's a public domain text, you ought to be able to find it on Project Gutenberg. Obviously, there are now. And thinking back, of course, to the 90s, it was a different era. You didn't have the web prevalent as it is now. Being able to access those things was from a single site was perhaps much more important. Now you'll find a lot of documents all over the internet, but nevertheless, it is good to have that authoritative source as well, and to know that you can look at documents on Project Gutenberg. So anyway, yeah, so they've obviously taken their name from Gutenberg because it's about the dissemination of information, just like his printing press was.
Hmm. Right, yeah. But you said that the Gutenberg Bible was a part of this collection?
Yeah, would have the Project Gutenberg, absolutely, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So does that mean we're taking the images of that, or is it just the text?
Now, when I've pulled things down from Project Gutenberg, I think they were pulled down as PDF. Yeah, you're thinking about the text again. I think it's more OCR, so they're scanning it. When
Okay,
I've done
okay,
it, I think
good.
it's been
Yeah.
PDFs I've got. Yeah.
Well, a lot of the appeal of the Gutenberg Bible was the imagery, wasn't it? I mean,
Right.
it's yeah.
Yeah, there should be pictures of a lot of it around. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if Project Gutenberg has gone and done that. I don't know. But yeah, I see
Gotcha,
what you
because
mean
that's
about the
what
artwork.
I don't know. If you were to ask me, I think that's where the real value of such a book would come
Yeah,
in. So, yeah.
yeah.
I'm being nitpicky here, but
No, they may well have done it as well. I don't think I've ever actually looked at the Gutenberg Bible on there, but there should be quite a number of sites that have the pictures now, I would think.
okay, yeah, all
Yeah,
right,
yeah. I mean, even the things like the Dead Sea Scrolls, a lot of them have now been scanned and released
okay, yeah.
because it's useful. Well, it's useful for to essentially back that information up, but also to gives it a wide variety, a wide variety of people actually looking at the text. And who knows? Some of them haven't been properly deciphered, so who knows? Maybe somebody may be able to find something that other people missed.
Mhm. Yeah, okay.
So that's all I have. You had a couple
Mm.
of other items.
Yes, I do. So I'm sort of promised I'd get this thing in here. So a bit of a hat tip to Vasu Eriksson. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Tell me if I am not. But yeah, he's a listener of our podcast and friend and hardcore uh, men's rights guy, anti-feminist. He's spoken with Janice Fiamango and Paul Elam and so forth. Great guy to know. Um, so recently he made a reaction post against the Tin Man. If you know who this guy is, he's uh, uh, appears to
So
be anti-male suicide.
So the Tin
Well,
Man is on X and maybe other
yeah,
platforms, but I know
yeah,
him from
sure,
X. Yeah.
right, yeah. So well, he was Tin Man blocked Erickson for protesting the Tin Man calling Paul Elam an asshole. Um, uh, so it's kind of a weird situation, but he actually managed to get a question across to um the Tin Man for his Q&A podcast. I don't know how he that was managed, but it was a podcast episode featuring Lisa Britton, if you know who that is.
Hmm.
So Erickson's question was, where was it? Why do you not why does the Tin Man not consider abortion murder? So this is supposed to be a men's issues guy, the Tin Man, and the first thing he said was that that is a judgmental question.
Mm.
Yeah, so kind
Mm.
of
And I
bizarre
have
from
watched the
this.
video that you're
Yeah,
mentioning, but go on.
yeah,
Yes.
bizarre from the
Yeah.
start. Some remarks he kind of made was, not kind to the child. So we're talking about the question of, abortion as murder here, and I think
Mm.
we in the men's movement have made a good case that it is.
Mm.
But we're seeing kind of uh, what I think is a bit of a typical abortion defenders response that why put them in a situation in which they would be uh, not able to have a good life or something like that.
Mm.
Now, if we use that
Eh,
logic, did you have something first?
Oh, just he actually argued. He actually presented I think I guess a paper that had been proposed that suggested that prevalence of abortion may have reduced the crime rate. That was one of the
Yeah,
other arguments that was made.
yeah, that was something I saw. But the thing is,
Yes, go
if
on.
you want to use that logic,
Mm.
why not kill born children for the
Mm.
same
Mm.
reason?
The same logic could be applied. Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So the entire question was skirted. It was
Mm.
just dismissed. Is abortion murder? So there was no case to be made. At least there was no proper response to it. It's just kind of judging the question for being judgmental to women who have it.
Mm.
So it was a very gynocentric sort of a take. Um,
Mm.
and that's what I would like to ask: is killing a child in any way, no matter what the circumstance, okay?
Mm.
So that was ignored, and I kind of looked through the Tin Men's X page, and I saw a post of him advertising his podcast. So it's new Ask Us Anything podcast with Lisa Britton discussing, do we really live in a patriarchy? What on earth is man keeping? Are homophobia and misandry connected? Who is running UN women's socials? And what are the best charities we're supporting? No reference to Vasu's question on that post, though he does talk about it in the show. So he's trying to hide that.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's a bit
Yes,
of
I see your
a
point. That's right. That's
yeah,
right.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. You should be seeing it on your screen right now when I
Yeah.
edit this. I would probably be sharing it right at this
So,
moment.
I don't know if you've ever looked at this figure, and I must admit, we do a lot of research. You do,
Hmm.
myself, other people at a Voice for Men, and so forth.
Hmm.
There's one bit of research I'd never actually done before, and I did it recently, and I was a bit shocked at the result. I found out how many abortions around the world there are every year.
Hmm.
Okay, and it's about 200,000 a day, or about 73 million a
Right.
year as of 2024.
Hmm.
Um, in 1980, it was about 40 million a year, right?
Hmm.
I am actually going to try to find the number each year between 1980 and today. I haven't done that yet. I
Hmm.
only just started doing that today and got distracted actually.
Yeah.
Um, but I did do a back of the envelope calculation, right? If it was 40 million in 1980 and it's 73 million now, and the growth rate has been linear, that comes up at about 2.5 billion abortions. Now, the argument has been made that not all of those would have resulted in viable births, and that's a fair argument. However, even if we very conservatively assume half of them would have resulted in viable births,
Yes.
then that is still a considerable number of missing people, right?
Right.
I think we may have found because the population growth is tanking,
Hmm.
and the Earth's population may actually start to shrink within the next few decades. I
Hmm.
think we may have found a considerable part of the missing population. So
Hmm.
yes, if we had had an extra, 1 to 1.5 billion people over the last
Hmm.
45 years or so,
Right.
yeah, the Earth's population would be considerably larger. So
Mhm.
I do find it, yeah. Anyway, I just thought I was personally shocked at the number. And
Mhm.
when I first heard the number, actually, I didn't initially research it. I heard the number. I was skeptical of it, and I researched
Right.
it, and it's
Yeah.
actually true. By the way, one other thing that I thought was really interesting, I didn't realize, is that in terms of proportions, the proportion of births that are essentially that are aborted using the normal meaning of abortion, which is that a deliberate termination is done, not
Hmm.
a miscarriage, whatever.
Right.
But
Right.
Western countries turn out to be about mid-range. I would have actually thought Western countries would have been towards the top of the list. They're actually not. They're about mid-range. So there are quite a number of non-Western countries that have significantly higher abortion rates than the West. Also, bear in mind that this does include forced abortions. Now, for example, China there's some pretty solid data to suggest that the Chinese Communist Party has been forcing abortions in women who are imprisoned, and also in some minority groups. So
Yeah.
like the Uyghurs. I don't know if it's specifically the Uyghurs, but I wouldn't at all be surprised if the Uyghurs. So it does include
And,
forced abortions.
and that's still going on?
Within recent years, yes,
Okay.
yes, yep.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, so it's not all voluntary abortions. I do want to make that clear. It is in some
Mhm.
cases forced abortions. Yeah,
Right. Sure. Yeah.
but it
Right.
is still, to my mind, a staggering number. Absolutely
Hmm.
staggering.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. And, circling back to this, I'm just really put off by the fact that we must defend women's feelings here in the Tin Man's response
Mm,
instead of actually admitting that abortion is murder or making or attempting to make a cogent case that it isn't because he did
mm.
not do that.
Do either,
Um,
right? I think
exactly.
it's always the same that a voice
Hmm.
for men is standing alone. A voice for men has always stood alone, right?
Hmm.
There are even lots of other people who would be operating, say, within men's rights. And there are some other great organisations that we've got, friendly relationship with, so
Mm.
forth. But
Yeah.
nevertheless, I think A Voice for Men has always stood alone and taken a little bit of a different position.
Mm.
A good example of this is in relation to whether, say, for example, whether gynocentrism is biological or cultural.
Mm.
Peter Wright has made some fantastic arguments arguing against the prevalent opinion among MRAs that it's biological. So they will have to be clear there. Peter is arguing that it's that essentially it's cultural and something that not fundamental. Like for example, the idea, for example, of men naturally preferencing women or giving their lives up for
Yeah.
women, for example.
Right.
A lot of people, there are a lot of people who sort of be very much into biological determinism and will argue, well, that's the nature of man to do that.
Right.
But A
Yeah.
Voice for Men, no, there's some really good arguments have been made that no, in fact, that's not.
Yeah.
And
Well.
that it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be that way in the future.
Yeah, it's a bad scientific point of view, but it's a bad moral point of view, which is what I'm
Mm.
trying to say.
Yes.
To make a claim that it is science that men are the sacrificial
Mm.
species. It's kind of like saying that it's science that a certain race is inferior than another, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But and once again, circling back to that podcast before I kind of try and
Mm.
close up on it.
Yes.
I was also disappointed. Well, disappointed was not the right term because I didn't really expect much from that one. Because there are reasons to be kind of wary about Lisa Britton personally, in my opinion. But she kind of follows up by saying, "I don't judge anybody for their choices." Regarding the
Mm.
abortion thing. That's what she kind of had to add to that whole thing. And why are we not judging anybody for their choices, especially when it concerns the question of
In
murder
actual
here?
in actual fact, the state judges people for their choices all the time.
Mhm.
If the
Exactly,
ju-
yeah.
if the particular choice is deemed to be unacceptable.
Mhm. Right,
Yep.
yeah. Yeah, so it's not judgment that's the problem, it's just making the rational judgment.
Mm.
Um, and maybe correct where you're wrong later,
Mm.
but judgment is something that happens. So, I don't judge. It's not a good moral stance. It's,
Mm.
judge but prepare to be judged is better.
Mm.
But it's like, when somebody just goes on and aborts just because they felt like it, and that's
Mm.
probably that appears to be the majority of the reason why abortions happen.
Mm.
Um, at least 95%, am I right? Was it much more
Oh,
than
about no,
that?
it's our voluntary ones. Yeah, according
Yeah,
to
right,
some
yeah.
data that I've seen. Yeah,
Right, yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So
which
I
we will
think
be
we're in a
continuing.
good position. Yeah, we're in a good position to judge, because we could size women up by this attitude, that they have no regard for life at its most crucial or
Mm.
most precarious, I suppose.
Mm.
And uh, and I am disinclined to think they would make a good mother in that case.
Mm.
So there's a lot of judgment points to be made here.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
I'm
and
looking
yeah,
forward to artificial wombs because, well,
mhm,
for a number of reasons, but one of the possibilities is that
yes.
the transfer of the fetus could be an alternative to an abortion,
That
and there'll
I
be
have
plenty of people
been.
who'd be willing
Mhm.
to adopt the child.
Yes, I have been as vocal as I can about that one
Mm.
before, but even some other certain specific MRAs have told me that was impractical, not naming names, but
Yeah.
but I firmly believe that that is like somewhere we should be pursuing
Mm.
because it also exposes the pro-abortion people's true intent. Do they
Yes.
want to terminate a pregnancy in itself, or do they just want to kill babies? Because if they're not going to
Yes.
go for this artificial womb thing, then they're
Yes.
just for the killing babies, and instead
Yes.
of kind of yeah,
And
yeah, go
along
ahead.
similar lines, I've
Mhm.
fetal viability is the point at which essentially the fetus can survive on its own if removed from the womb, and
Yes.
it's now much earlier than it was even a few
Mhm.
decades ago. It's somewhere down around 19 weeks now, or something like that, maybe even a little below that. So it's extraordinary, right?
Right.
So I've put it to some of these people, if could, instead of aborting the fetus, what about if it has fetal viability? What about removing it,
Hmm.
and the mother gives up all claim to it, and the father gets custody?
Yes.
And I've noticed that they don't answer me when I ask that question. So, which it really does come across like they're
Hmm.
determined to
Yeah.
get to kill the fetus rather
Yeah.
than
Hmm.
if they simply want to remove it from the mother, and I don't believe the operation to remove it would be significantly worse than the operation to abort it. Why not have that as an alternative and have the father bring up the child? But yeah, I've
Exactly.
noticed this is not something that they
Hmm.
seem to be willing to go for.
Hmm. Yeah. I had to talk about this. So you remember the you've seen Star Trek Deep Space Nine, right?
Oh yes, I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you do remember the episode where uh they had to factor in Nana Visitor's real life pregnancy, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. Keiko O'Brien's second child. So she gets in a shuttle accident, and they had to work in Nana Visitor's own pregnancy. They
mm,
had to transfer the O'Brien Miles O'Brien and Keiko's baby into Kira.
that's right.
Yeah,
That's thus
yeah,
explaining
to
why
save it.
Kira is
Yes.
pregnant,
Right.
which they
Yeah.
couldn't otherwise put into the story because she didn't have a
Right.
partner, etc., etc. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, sure, yeah. I mean, if that plot point were more organic, maybe an artificial womb would have been considered, but obviously it's to do the not a visitor pregnancy thing. Uh,
Exactly. That's right.
yeah,
That's
but
right.
but one thing that struck me is the care they put into saving a fetus. I'm not saying
Mm.
that this is that. Well, they haven't been, it's not like they've been like super pro-abortion outwardly on the show anyway, but I appreciated the care there. So, it's like,
Mm.
this idea of, being sure you can replace incubators. It's a bit of an indelicate way to put it, but
Mm.
so I'm reminded of that. But
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, on subject.
And they did then proceed to play it up a little bit because now we've got Kira um, holding on, or I should say Nerys actually, if it was the first name,
Mhm.
holding on to Miles O'Brien's baby,
Right.
and this has all
Hmm.
got a bit awkward. Yes,
Right, yeah. It makes for some entertainment.
that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I want to close off the Tin Man subject by he in of course another cringeworthy fashion says the war on gender hurts women too. And
Mm.
I am tired of hearing that.
Yeah, yeah.
Stop,
It's
women
yeah,
most
that's right.
affected. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say I agree with I agree with the statement, right? But nevertheless,
Mhm.
it's not. We often hear a lot about that, and yeah,
Yeah.
we need
Yeah.
men's issues to have. I mean, we a lot's changed, and things are a lot better than
Mhm.
they were, but nevertheless, we still have a way
Yeah.
to go. We need men's issues
Right.
to continue to get more recognition and more funding from the government.
Right.
Um,
And for being a
so
men's issue instead of women most affected. It's not the
yes,
first thing about, this
yes.
this whole thing.
And I do want to just very briefly digress here. I've heard a statement used a couple of different places recently, and it just struck me as odd. And I've done some searches online, and I haven't seen a lot of people talking about it. But it was just very odd that I heard the same phrase used twice from two different groups of people who don't know each other, or two different people, I should say, different sort of different circles who don't know each other. And the phrase is women are in free fall. That's the phrase that's being used. And the context of the
Hmm.
phrase in both cases was essentially women have made a series of choices that are not working out very well at all. And I think this is true, right?
Hmm.
And oddly enough, one of the great ironies of all this is that we, raising men's issues, occasionally actually point these things out. And we get a huge amount of hate when we do. When we say, for example, oh, actually, these choices that women are making are not working out very well for women either, right? And we actually get a huge amount of hate for it, which is really, oddly enough, if feminists were really doing their job, they would surely be recognizing these problems among women and trying to do something about it. But in a lot of cases, the feminists are actually the one pushing the negative
Yeah, of
behaviors, which are
course.
actually causing women to be in free fall. So just uh, keep an eye out for that phrase because I think we're going to be hearing it more often.
Hmm.
But interestingly enough, as an aside to this, um, I discovered something today which is really interesting, and that is that uh, there's been an uptick in paracetamol overdosing, right?
Okay.
So for those who don't know, and I think this is a really important to mention actually, paracetamol, of course, is I would call it Panadol, but there's a few different brand names. It's a very common over-the-counter mild painkiller. The human body actually has a relatively low tolerance to overdosing paracetamol. It only takes two or three times the dose to actually essentially become a life-threatening dose.
Mm.
It's quite low. Like a lot of other drugs, it has to be a lot higher than that before it becomes dangerous. Not paracetamol. It's quite low, right? And I've actually discovered while doing various research, as I often do, that there's been a significant uptick in paracetamol overdoses in the West in the last few years, and they're almost all with women.
Mm.
So, and now paracetamol overdosing can be a method of suicide, actually.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, I would have to say, maybe people don't really realize it. I'll make the point. If you're using paracetamol, follow the dosing because seriously, it can really hurt you if you overdose, right? It can be lethal if you do it too badly, but it kills the liver. What a horrible, horrible way to go. So I just don't know why people would choose that way. But anyway, it's absolutely awful. But interestingly enough, I just uncovered this recently where it's actually because I do obviously my focus is on men's issues, but in terms of watching the social milieu and watching what's going on in society. I do keep an eye on what's going on too with various things that are going on with women, and I noticed recently that there's been an uptick in this. So this is a
Yeah.
very interesting. So there's been a general trend that women are less happy today than they were in past decades. There's lots of evidence to support that. Whereas despite all the problems, men have been largely consistently happy over the last few decades.
Right.
A few decades ago, women were happier than men. Now the reverse is true, for
Right.
example.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
If I'm going to interject, I'm looking up paracetamol
Mm.
right now. It's acetaminophen. It's a different name for that. Okay. Yeah. Because I know it
Right.
by the other name.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
couldn't
Yeah.
remember the other name, and yes, thank you very much. I'm glad you looked that
Oh
up.
yeah.
Yes, because you say North
Yeah.
Americans will know
Yes.
it by that name. I
Yeah.
think paracetamol may be the actual drug name, but maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, great. So,
But yeah. But that's
um,
what Tylenol is. And
yes.
some other things. So yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was having a bit of even though I did live in North America for a number of years, I was having a bit of a
Yeah.
memory fail there on remembering the appropriate
Yeah.
terms.
Sure. Yeah. I
Thank
know
you.
it. I know it better as acetaminophen. So.
Right. Okay, great. So, yes, and then the human body's tolerance to overdosing is very, very low. And so you've got to be really careful with dosing on this. And if you're
Yes.
giving it to children, for example, be
Mhm.
extremely careful with the
Mhm.
liquid ones.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, yeah, as I said, there's been a recent uptick.
Mhm.
And I would have thought that most of the overdosing would be accidental overdosing, where people have taken the drug, thought it wasn't working, took some more. Apparently, it's actually been used as a suicide method, which is I think is
Mhm.
awful and shocking.
Mhm.
But anyway, I just wanted to mention first of all, everybody should know that you really got to be careful with the dosing on this stuff, and it's worth noting that this is something that has been happening.
Right.
Yeah, just thought I'd mention that as an aside.
Of course. Yeah. Yes.
I don't have anything else except for Zoe McClellan.
Okay. Would you say that we're coming to the end of this thing?
I think so. I think we've been going for quite a
In
decent
in,
time tonight.
yeah, we have been. So, I'm actually going to go ahead and leave the music AI thing for next time because that
Sounds
I
good.
have pages of notes on.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That-
But
okay.
before you go into Zoe McClellan, I do have one thing to mention. So I don't think I'll do it for this episode, but for episodes of the next year, I am strongly considering extracting shorts out of a given episode. I'll still have so this is an idea. I'll still have my our we'll still have our usual full episode posted, but I am considering biting the bullet and trying out YouTube Shorts, and maybe kind of give some more punctuated um, uh, segments of certain ideas. Like hypothetically, if I were to do it for this episode, maybe we'll talk about the abortion stuff, or maybe we'll talk about the Gutenberg press or something, or
Yeah.
the proxy violence. So maybe just punctuated points as shorts. So I would appreciate the listener to give feedback on this. Do you want to see shorts come out of it? That'll impact my decision to kind of move forward with the idea and commit to it. I don't want to commit to it right now because I got other things on my plate. But for future episodes, I think that might be a decent idea. Let us know.
Well, I'm not a listener, but I think it's a great idea.
Mm. Right. All right.
All right. Anything else before I go into Zoe McClellan?
No, only that next time I'm gonna try and really do the music AI talk.
No, fair enough. Cool. All right. As of December 2025, a warrant is outstanding for the arrest of Zoe McClellan in relation to charges of kidnapping, child stealing, and child custody deprivation. McClellan is a public figure who has appeared in numerous popular television shows, including Star Trek Voyager, JAG, NCIS New Orleans, and Designated Survivor. Her face is familiar to millions. It is extraordinary that she has evaded detection for so long. McClellan was reportedly residing in an apartment in River Ridge, Louisiana in April 2021 and may still be residing in the area. McClellan grew up in the area of Port Orchard, Washington State, and may have returned to the area. Some sources believe that McClellan has left the United States and is residing in Canada or Costa Rica. Prior to disappearing, McClellan was known to use the alias Sarah Chandler. Anyone with any relevant information should contact the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. Thank you.
All right, we'll see you in the next year.
See you then. Bye.
Hmm?